Hello everyone. Going to be doing a little bit of a little tier list here of the upgrades that the 3 trolls from the Hobbit armies get. And I'm going to be ordering them the order that I think that they are the best in, and that you will most likely be taking them. Making this before I have tried them, but I'm really excited to play them, and curious to see if after playing them, if my opinions will change on some of these, or how close I will be to where I think the final list and the order of the upgrades go. So as I go through, I'll explain what they do and where I am putting them, and explain at the end how I think all of that plays out together. So the first one is Full Bellies. This is the one that gives each of the trolls 3 might, 3 will, 3 fate. So instead of it being 3-1-1, 2-1-1, and 1-3-1, for Will, Bert, and Tom, respectively, they all just get 3s across the board. I think this is the first upgrade you take every time without fail. I think if you're playing this list at 450 for some reason, that it's the first one you take, and it is the only one you take, and then from there on, it is always the first one you are upgrading. The extra 3 might and 2 fate are the really big ones. The will isn't as important, but it's helpful against magic for your non-Tom trolls to be able to resist it a little bit more easily. But getting the extra might and the fate is huge, because getting 6 extra fate is effectively 3 extra wounds between the two of them on average. It can be less, it can be more. But when you're already capped at 9 wounds for the army base without any upgrades, getting effectively 3 more wounds on average to getting to 12, having that 33% increase on average wounds, I think it is too good of a thing to pass up on. And then the extra might to be able to call heroic combats, heroic moves a lot more consistently. I think one of the greatest things this list can do is put all 3 trolls into a line of dudes, triple heroic combat first turn, and hopefully you just get 4 kills, 4 kills, 4 kills, move into more, and then completely decimate whatever's left of their front line with getting up to 24 kills in one turn with the new monster changes. The second one, Stone Troll Endurance, I think is the opposite of Full Bellies. The second upgrade, Stone Troll Endurance, which I think is the opposite of Full Bellies, whereas Full Bellies is the first one you take, I think this is the last one you take. It is just a 6+ Fury save for all the trolls on natural 6s, so you can't even might a 5 or a 4 that to have kind of like pseudo fate. It's just strictly 6+ when you take a wound, you get to save it and then don't take the wound. It's just not consistent enough and only a 6. If it was a 5 up, I think there would be a talk about it, because then it would base at 5 up, each one would get probably an extra wound on average, and I think that would probably be worth it. But at 6 up, one of your trolls is probably getting 1 extra wound throughout the game potentially. So it's just, I don't think it's worth it, and I think it's just dead last. The next one, Nothing Like a Warm Fire, I actually think is probably the second auto take. I think these are the, no matter what, you always take these 2. It makes your fire effect, which the fire is your banner reroll, as well as a courage buff for your trolls, giving them +1 courage. And it changes that from a 6-inch effect to an 18-inch effect, which with the 80mm base the fire is on, you get to place it and it'll basically cover the entire board. On top of that, it also lets the banner count for banner VPs when no enemies are in base contact with it at the end of the game. So now not only is it basically a board-wide banner plus courage buff, which they actually need because their courage isn't that good, it also allows you to get those critical banner VPs, so in a scenario where those matter, you can tuck it kind of behind a terrain structure and then dictate your fights around it, because 18 inches is actually a huge amount when you place it in the right spot. Next is Rumbling Momentum. This one, all it does is when your guys attack, it gives them an extra, or when they charge, they get an extra attack. So it's the extra attack of Monstrous Charge, but not the knocking them prone of Monstrous Charge. So it seems pretty good on paper, getting the extra attack, but you're not going to be charging all the time. Like, you have 9 might, which is pretty good at lower point values especially. So you're going to be able to call moves a little bit more than you would at higher point levels, where the might becomes a little bit more critical. Because in my head, I almost think of them all as 2 might heroes, because you're going to give them full bellies and they're all going to want heroic combat once against a normal rank and file list to thin those numbers in that one big sweeping turn. But I definitely think that it's still really good for that sweeping turn to make it way more consistent. So I think that will go in A tier for now. Definitely need to play with that. Same with the Bowl Them Over. Bowl Them Over does 2 things. The main one is it turns their throw stone ability into a throwing weapon ability. So they no longer have to stand still. They can do their full 6 movement and throw with the movement penalty. And then because they're a throwing weapon, you can also do it when you charge into combat, so sometimes getting a free kill that way, which when you're doing the heroic combat turn might actually be a detriment. So it's something you should think about, because if you kill the front guy with the throwing stone and then can only go into one other dude, you can't kill the spear support now of the guy you killed. So you kind of don't want to do it that way. But it is something that you can do. And then it also lets you reroll the distance for your hurls. They're not super smart. Across the board, they mostly have a 7+, so you're more than likely to get the intelligence to roll off for the hurl. But the hurl for them I don't think is that consistent at the 7+. And so the re-rolling for that I think is just kind of a little bit extra for the main thing, which is getting its throwing weapons. It's not 100% sure. I think it's about as good as Rumbling Momentum. They are probably the closest, in my opinion, on this list of power level between the two. And I'm not 100% sure where I would rank them individually. They're just kind of right next to each other. The next one, Dominant Presence. This one's another tough one, because what it does is it allows them to, when they are on an objective, they just win it. No matter what, if one of these trolls is on an objective, the opponent doesn't have an auto-win objective roll as well, then this rule means that you just win it. It counts as your opponent having 0 models, and it counts as you having your model on there. With the 2 Bert and Tom being dominant 3, and Bill being dominant 5. This effectively means that anytime you have them on an objective, assuming any new scenarios follow the same pattern of the last edition of if you have at least 3 or triple your opponent, you get the max points. Them being at least dominant 3 means that when you bring this, if you put it on the point, you are guaranteed that triple max point value from your trolls, is my understanding, because they will all count as 3 models, which will therefore mean that you have at least 3, get the max points, and your opponent won't get any. The issue is, and why I'm hesitant to put it in A tier or even S tier, is when it's good, it's great, but if you spend the 50 points on this trait and then go into a non-objective scenario game, it is useless. It's just 50 points you're not playing with that your opponent is. And there's gonna be a points level where I think it becomes an auto take, but overall, in the order of where you would take it is kind of the idea of this. I think it's gonna be kind of bottom of A, top of B level for that one. The next one, Savvy Fighters, I probably am saying is bottom of A. They're needing to be able to get through anything that's in their way, because you only have 3 models, so if there's one model that can kind of get in the way of them, it's not good. And Savvy Fighters, what it does is it gives all of them strike. So instead of it just being, I believe, Bill, who's the highest fight anyway, having strike, all 3 of them now have strike, but the big thing is if anyone strikes against them, they get a 4+ copy the strike for free. So anyone that is tied with their fight or lower fight that goes to strike up into them, there's a 50% chance that you just get to copy the strike for free, which is going to be really bad for them. And then if not, you can have strike on them to call it now anyway. So it honestly, probably top of B tier. It's more for those higher points where the opponent's going to have 1 or 2 threats that can realistically deal with them. But it definitely seems very useful, and I could very easily be wrong, and this could easily be like top of A, of like, you need this, that way your guys can't get stopped. Now, Tasty Livestock, I think, is above Dominant Present, but below Savvy Fighters. It's a long one, but basically the long and short of it is, after both sides have deployed, but before the game like actually starts, you get to place 4 livestock markers on the board that can't be within 3 inches of any model, an objective marker, 6 inches of the board edge, or another livestock marker. And then anytime during a troll's activation, when they're within 3 inches of a livestock, they can remove it and gain a wound back. So it's basically you're putting 4 wounds on the table that as your trolls take them, they can go and regain them. It seems pretty decent. And like it is 4 more wounds, so it's basically an extra troll. So probably top of B tier, but I don't know if you would really take it before these 4, is my thing. Full bellies is kind of the same thing, but better. This is just too critical to consistency of it. Rumbling momentum, once again, consistency and hitting power. Like it doesn't matter if you have extra wounds to get if you're just not killing things. And then the flexibility and threat range of having the throwing weapon boulders is probably too good. But it's still really nice. Honestly, probably could be bottom of A tier as well. But I think at the top of B is pretty good. Cover of Darkness, it just gives them the Cave Dweller rule, so they see through the dark and get a +1 to their rolls for climb and jump checks and all that, which isn't bad, and then also lets you choose whether the match is fought at night. So that's the big one. I'm not sure if it's worth it at lower point levels to be wasting 50 points just to make it night, but it will be good because you are a pin cushion for the enemy shooting. So if you go up against Range of Athelion or even Rohan, where they can just cavalry kite you and just shoot you with bows and throwing spears, like you could very easily, with them being D6 and D7, taking 6s from strength 3 shooting, so elven bows and throwing weapons, it seems very easy that they can get shot off the table against a heavy shooting list. So having Cover of Darkness to have that force them to come in close, get in range of your boulders, and then hopefully only take 1 or 2 turns of shooting. But the issue is you're giving them +1 to wound. As far as I know, that hasn't changed in this edition, so you're giving them, instead of maybe 4+ turns of shooting, you're giving them 2 or 3 turns of shooting at +1 to wound, which can do basically just as much. So I need to definitely play with them and see how pincushiony they feel, and if you need this could very easily bump up to more like top of A tier, and you're taking it like 3rd, just because you have to hedge for this in tournament play. Obviously, if you know what you're playing in a one-of match, you can kind of prep for that. I do kind of wish that you could switch things around in a tournament because of this. You have all these very niche ones that when they're good, they're great, but when they're not good, they're useless and wasted points. So definitely we'll have to get some playtime in with them, and then honestly probably play a tournament with them to see at the different points levels to see how punishing it is when you bring something that isn't good, how detrimental it is. The next one, Troll Cunning. This one seems great, and honestly I think goes right up here and is the 3rd auto take. It means that any of your guys can't be trapped while they're standing, and then they all get to reroll failed to wound rolls when making strikes against a trap model. So you might be thinking, well, okay, not being trapped that's the first part, the important part, that's all that matters. You can't be trapped. The best way to kill a monster is to put a bunch of basic dudes around the monster. It flubs the roll, you win it, and then like 4 just regular warriors and a hero, and they flash kill the monster just like that because you're rolling so many dice. Or honestly, just 4 regular dudes doubling to 8 strikes can kill monsters out of nowhere. But with this, that doesn't happen. So all of a sudden that hero with 2 warriors, the hero is putting 3 attacks in, the warriors are putting 2 attacks in, they can't trap you, and they're probably all looking for 6s, unless the hero is going at Tom, who probably needs 5s then. So you're taking 1, maybe 2 wounds at worst in that situation, which isn't great because they can put way more dudes into you, but if you crash their lines and do the heroic combat shenanigans, they probably don't have the numbers to really do a lot more than that. So the second effect of re-rolling failed to wound rolls when they're trapped is just kind of icing on top of the cake. And you can force this with the hurls. This is probably the best situation to be hurling, is, oh, my guy's into a hero. That hero is a threat to them, whereas this other troll wasn't into a threat. They beat the warriors in the duel roll. You hurl one of them into the hero, probably kill the warrior. The other hero goes prone now. And then if they lose the fight, that troll is re-rolling all their failed wounds. which is a huge deal. And then they also can't strike back now. So it protects your troll, as well as if they win, they probably just flash kill the hero now, because if they have rumbling momentum and charge, they're 4 dice doubling to 8, and all re-rolling, you're killing the hero almost certainly. So really good, huge. It's going to help the survivability probably the most out of any of these. But I do think you need the other consistencies of the extra might, will, and fate, and the banner effect and banner VPs before it. So I do think it is the 3rd upgrade, but I think it is 100% the 3rd upgrade. Next, kitchen utensils. I think this is honestly not as bad as Stone Troll Endurance, but definitely down in the Corsair tier. It just is re-rolling any wound rolls of natural 1 when making strikes. So it doesn't let you do dual roll shenanigans. If it was any rolls in the duel, I think it would be a lot better. If it allows you to re-roll 1s in the dual rule and the strike rule. But just being re-rolling 1s to strike, that's it. No other fancy little shenanigans. Not great. I think top of Corsair tier, I think that's better than the 6+, but ever so slightly. I'm not even sure. I actually probably would take the 6+ Fury save over the re-rolling 1s now that I think about it. So this probably is the worst upgrade. But it's so close. The last one, that's mine, that is. Another really long one, like Livestock. But the short of it is each of the trolls can place an objective marker, basically. It's a stash marker, they call it. And they can only have one on the board for each of them. But all they do is they effectively are treated as a single warrior controlling an objective. And they can be destroyed by an enemy model moving into base contact with it. And then it has to be in base contact with it. And at the end of any turn where they have not cast any magical powers, used a missile weapon, been engaged in a combat or supported a combat, or been unable to move by any rule, they can remove the marker. So they basically can only move. They can't do anything else, just move. And if they're in base contact, they can remove it. So it's kind of like sticky objectives for the trolls. Each of them can drop that objective marker and basically have a dude on it. I think it is the top of Corsair tier, I think, because having the objective control with only 3 models is a big deal. Like, you only have 3 models, and even with Dominant Presence, really good auto winning. They already have Dominant, and especially Bill having Dominant 5, it's pretty easy for him to get onto a point, kill enough dudes that he flips control of it. But they can't sit on a back objective. Like, if Breakthrough, like in the old edition, you have your objective, you want to control your opponent's objective, you need to control on the side ones. You can drop all 3 stash markers on your objective and say you need to get a guy over there and start destroying them, or get enough dudes to control it from that. Or, oh, I have cleared through on one flank and gotten to their back, drop my supply marker to control theirs, and then come back and kind of shuffle through and clear out things. Because it's, once again, another very situational one of it's only useful if you are playing objective-based scenarios, I would have really liked the Dominant Presence and that mine, that is, having just something to make it a little bit more viable for when it's non-objective markers to have it more valuable. I do think this is still worse, though, because just being able to say I win it is probably better. With how it is, I'm going to slide Tasty Livestock up to top, or the bottom of A tier. And so with that finally being with the non-Sauron tier, Full Belly is nothing like a Warm Fire, Troll, Cunning. I think in this order, these are the 3 you're taking every time. And then Arrogate, I'm not sure if this is the order that you take them in. I very easily could be Tasty Livestock as the top, and that's the 4th upgrade you're taking. But Rumbling Momentum, Bowl Them Over, and Tasty Livestock, I think, are easily the next 3 best. Maybe Savvy's Fighters can bump whatever the bottom of this tier ends up being. But I think that this is pretty confident these are the next 3 you take. So for the first 100 points, you're taking Full Belly's Nothing Like a Warm Fire. If you get 50-point interval, you can throw in Troll, Cunning. And then next 100 points, you're taking these 2. 50 points, you get this. So that's kind of the idea, is the first 100-point upgrades, you get the first 2. and then a 50-point increment, you get the next one, and then you keep going like that. And then Betamir, Savvy Fighters, Dominant Presence, Cover of Darkness. Corsairs, that's mine, that is Stone Troll Endurance, Kitchen Utensils. These are by far, especially these two, are by far the worst. This one you could probably say is up in Betamir. It's just dependent on, once again, Dominant Presence. These jump up to, I think, A and S respectively. They go from B and C to S and A when you are on an objective scenario. But because not all of them are objective scenarios and they are completely wasted 50 points in them compared to the rest of these, which are never wasted, I think that knocks them down all the way down to B and C. But I could be wrong, and I could, after playing enough, be like, these matchups are so bad that if you don't have these, the dominant built into the baked-in dominance not nearly enough. You need that extra staying power on controlling objectives. I could see these going up. And then also same with Cover of Darkness. If it's like they are just pin cushions and you just die before you get in against anybody that brings any number of bows, also I could see that going up. But like I said, these are the upgrades. Haven't played it yet. Just initial thoughts. I think this is the pretty rough order of how you take them, the order you take them in when regardless of scenarios. Obviously, like I've been saying, the tier list change if you look at specific scenarios, but I think generically, making the best all-around list, this is the order that I would follow. After I play around with the list a bunch and get to try it actually in-game, in scenario, and get some experience, I'm hoping to revisit this and see if I still think the same thing. So thank you so much. If you've played with the trolls, please let me know what you think and how they have performed, and if you agree with anything I've placed here, or if you would change any of them based on your experience. Otherwise, I am signing off. Thank you.